We get right to it. The Urban Meyer era in Jacksonville is a wrap. Late last night, the Jaguars made the decision that they were firing their first-year head coach, Urban Meyer. This, of course, comes on the heels of Josh Lambo, a former kicker, who had some complaints about behavior from Urban Meyer. Said that he kicked him before a preseason game, getting ready to take on the Raiders. In August, reported this. Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times wrote about it. And then Josh Lambo also, here he was in a one-on-one interview on First Coast News in Jacksonville.
I see Urban come up to me out of the corner of my eye. He comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Dip," another word, "make your effing kicks." And then proceeds to kick me right in the leg, right in the hamstring. Also on the leg, on the hip, that kept me out for 12 games last year. And I couldn't believe it happened. I looked up at him. I said, "Don't you ever kick me again." He said, "If there is a source, that person's out of a job." Essentially, I don't remember the exact quote, but that was in essence what he said. And I don't think he can deny that. And that's what he did to me in August. And it's just unacceptable to intimidate people into your narrative. And now the reason for speaking up about it is because he's trying to shut everybody else up. And he tried to shut me up once. I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
God, can you hear that?
I'll tell you what, LaVar, it's if that gives you any indication of where this world is at, where kickers can dictate things in football, my God.
And you know what's
I'll be real with you.
I'll tell you what's even scarier.
I didn't know rats were so athletic.
That's not an athlete.
What's even scarier is to even talk about it is so dangerous. Like, that's the culture we live in right now. To even make light of this is, and to criticize this guy is dangerous, which is crazy to me. Like, and listen, there will always be people that say, well, maybe the way things worked for you weren't actually correct. Maybe they should have been handled differently. You know, that's what makes it more legitimate, is that we're not as enlightened as we should be. But people like that come out and say things like that are truly enlightened and are truly, they've had their illuminating experiences in their lives to be able to say, "Hey, don't you kick me on my hamstring again. I will not allow for you to do that." Like, the day that football becomes a sport where a coach won't berate you. Like, I always say, one of the most interesting things, like, I'm not one that subscribes to, cursing out your player and really using, tactics that are more aggressive, because I always say, if we were in a different profession, you wouldn't talk to me this way and you wouldn't handle things this way. But nonetheless, it's a part of the culture. And while people will say, well, maybe the culture should change. Well, maybe some things shouldn't change.
Right.
Maybe some of you people that are soft-served dough should think about doing other things. If you can't handle a coach calling you a dip-ish, right, and you can't handle him kicking you in the back of the leg and telling you make the goddamn kick because that is all you're good for, and you can't handle them saying that, let me tell you something. You should hear 99% of the other stories that are taking place between players and coaches. If you, Mr. Kicker, believe that you were violated so vilely by Urban Meyer telling you to make the kick, which, by the way, you're a kicker. Like think about this. There is only one position in football that two, really, which is the snapper, which is funny because that's a special teams guy. Okay, 3, here we go. The holder, right, which is the guy who holds the ball for the specialist. You have the kicker, and you have the punter.
Which usually the holder and punter are the same guy.
So
usually the holder and punter are the same guy.
We say wide receiver. We say running backs. Like there are so many different meanings to the other positions in the game. While they will tell you exactly where the player may be, their duties and their responsibilities are vast. And so when you think about a guy that comes out and he's now considered to be the representation and the voice of what was taking place with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, I just got to be honest with y'all out there, and y'all may get upset with me, but that is not an accurate representation of the voice of that team.
No.
That is it's the furthest thing from an accurate that man is not rescuing the rest of the team. He's not leading them to freedom out of bondage from Urban Meyer. He does not speak for the rest of that locker room. I can assure you that.
I've never been on a team where that was the case, where a kicker wouldn't this. Because the thing is the timeline of all this. This happened in August. And you're telling me that at no point in time since then, nothing got enough play, enough role? This is what happened. And I think Shad Khan lied to everyone. Shad Khan, I think, wanted to fire Urban Meyer after the Ohio incident, the optics, everything else, and maybe felt early on he made a mistake.
Yep.
But you know what he couldn't do? He couldn't fire him with cause. This resurfaced again. And I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't a hit job from the inside. With all the stuff that was leaked out, coaches on the staff that I can assure you were leaking stuff, maybe even someone on the front office side with a big title, if you know what I mean. And I think this was one of those things that got whispered into Shad Khan's ear, and they said, hey, you can get out from underneath this with cause. You don't have, so they could fire him. They're not going to have to pay whatever is there. Or you pay a reduced amount through a settlement. That's what this was about. They eventually felt like, or Shad Khan must have felt like at some point they wanted to move on, and they needed to figure out a way out. And they realized after the incident in Ohio, it wasn't enough. You weren't able to fire Urban Meyer with cause then. And now they got a chance to, because the Josh Lambo, this whole incident, which, again, the NFLPA, I didn't hear them make a big fuss about it. And so outside of this being reported, which happened months ago, we're now using that as cause to fire the guy? None of it really makes sense as far as the timeline of when this incident occurred and now the decision that they're making. It's like, was Shad Khan just completely unaware of this as an owner? Did Josh Lambo just decide to try to pile on now with everything else that was coming out?
It just seems to be a trend.
I don't even care that he's a kicker who made the accusations. To Brady's point, none of it adds up. It doesn't make sense. So first of all, in one of the reports, it was Josh Lambo said, when he kicked me, I said, don't ever effing kick me again. All right, that's a bunch of crap. I can guarantee you he didn't say that. Secondly, well, he could have been busting his balls. Urban Meyer even denied it afterwards.
Hello. Yeah, of course he was. Football culture.
Yes,
of course he was.
And it's so when you hear this,
there's a reason why Josh Lambo's not there anymore. It has nothing to do with this incident.
And by the way, that happened in August. He wasn't cut until a couple of months later. And you want to know why he was cut? Because he stunk out loud. He missed his first 3 kicks, and he missed a couple of PATs, if I'm not mistaken. And he got beat out for the job. He went to Pittsburgh, got cut again. This sounds like a guy who butchered his own performance, butchered his own job, got cut, and then all these months later wants to come out and start ratting people out and complaining because somebody was teasing him a little bit in a pregame huddle. I never played anywhere close to the level you guys played, but I played in high school. And this is so common. Coaches would come around and whip you in the back of your helmets with their keys. They would come around and pinch the back of your arm.
Slap you with their hand.
And that happened at mediocre high school
football.
Grab
you by your face mask. I mean, Brady, throw an interception, miss a couple passes during the game. What is the coach going to do? Grab you by your face mask, especially like high school, college. Grab you by your face mask and be like, come on, Brady. Like, yeah, I mean, get your effing head in the game.
Here's why this is that part of, all the media, everyone on the outside wants to get an inside scoop in the locker room. You can't handle the locker room.
You can't handle it.
You can't handle it.
Nope.
Like, you can't handle really the reality of football.
Nope.
And don't try to come into this world of football and say, well, it needs to change, or don't say that. Because there is a certain intensity, there's certain things that are being asked of these players and of these coaches that you don't understand unless you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality of it, is you can't handle it. Because when it comes down to it, I don't care if it's in football or anything else, when you get to those intense moments, you start to see people acting out outside of their shell. But this is just us getting a peek into something that's not corporate America. It's not for social media. It's not for all of this. It's what goes on in the locker room and a brotherhood and this what's supposed to be a tight-knit group that clearly came unwound because of, again, probably a desire by people on the inside who didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
When Brett Musburger came out and we talked about it, and he said it was a professional hit job on John Gruden, it was like, okay, yeah, but he did say those things in the email. So, I mean, it's not like, what is the fireable offense for Urban Meyer? Because I just saw somebody list something on a television in which they listed all his transgressions, hired Chris Doyle as a strength coach. Okay, you got rid of him. I saw somebody
by the way, he didn't get rid of him. The guy resigned.
Because of all the heat.
Well, right, but I'm saying he hired him because of the job that he did. And here's the other part about that. Are we done giving people a second chance in this world?
Amen.
Is that where we're at now? Like, we're
Amen.
done giving people a second chance, and we can't say, well, hey, a guy might have made a mistake in the past, or maybe there were some allegations, but apparently nothing's innocent until proven guilty anymore. And then are we just done giving people a second? So could Chris Doyle never coach ever in the history of his life from here on out? Like, there's a lot of players who are in defense of Chris Doyle. But now you're all of a sudden you're going to say, well, no, he can never coach again. I mean, that's we're willing to do it in some facets where we want second chances some places and not anywhere else. You tell me how unfair that is.
It's ridiculous. And you list off his quote-unquote transgressions, hires Chris Doyle. People complain about the Tim Tebow stuff, the stuff that happened at the bar. Yeah, it was a bad look. Is that a fireable offense? Guy made a mistake. He apologized for it. Then you get these rats and snakes that are in the locker room that dime him out to the NFL Network. By the way, one of those reports, Marvin Jones, who was listed as the guy who walked out, talked about it and said, yeah, that's BS. That's not how it happened. We had a conversation as men. That's not true. We discuss something. We move on. I'm the elder statesman in the room. So that was called out, and that was pointed out that it was BS. Brady, you mentioned it earlier this week. Albert Breers talked about it on Twitter, said, yeah, that didn't happen. It's not true. And then you get a report of a guy who took a little bit of teasing the wrong way, and then all of that totals up to Urban Meyer losing his job. Let me ask you this. If they've got a winning record, is he getting fired?
No.
Not happening. And if that incident in Ohio in the bar hadn't happened, is any of this a fireable offense? It's a bunch of crap. This is all crap. People that wanted to jump on him, we said it 2 days ago. They had an agenda coming into this. They didn't like the fact that he was in the league. They wanted him out because people were still pissed off about the way he handled his roster, whether it be at Florida and the guys that were on that team, or whatever happened with this coaching staff or the players and the characters at Ohio State. It's a bunch of crap. If Brett Musburger thinks it was a smear job on John Gruden, what the hell do you call this? It's ridiculous.
I'll say this, and it's interesting because it's like I guess Lambeau has put himself in position to do a tell-all book, dropping in August.
Big time, baby.
Social, I wonder if a TV network or the media is not going to hire him now.
Lifetime.
Yeah, way to go.
Lifetime will do a docuseries on the life of Lambeau and release that. And here's what I'll say, right? If there was an offense, and I think I said this on the show maybe yesterday, when in the locker room, when there is such unrest going on with the team, like to think that we're Neanderthals that don't have feelings, that don't know how, we're not in the locker room like onga bunga, like. We speak English, people. We know how to communicate with one another. We understand what an abusive situation feels like. We understand what looking out for one another. And actually, imagine this. We actually understand that with the coaching staff. We understand that with the scouts, the media, the ownership. We actually understand these things. Like there's this thing called comprehension. And I know I might sound like I'm being like a jerk or condescending, but for some strange reason, I just always feel weird when conversations start to go down a lane where our IQ and our mental IQ, our emotional IQs now fall to the wayside. if Urban Meyer was being an aggressive, abusive person to the degree of what this guy is saying, the team would have handled that. The team would have came to that kicker's defense and been like, hey, Urban, chill, bro. Chill. Like, that's enough. Like, we're good here. The team would have policed that situation. So to sit here and go rogue the way that this dude did, and for it to be a linchpin of sorts, to be the conversational point that pivots all of this towards the right direction of Urban Meyer isn't the right person for the job. Look at this team's success rate as of late. Look at where this franchise currently sits in its success and what it's doing. You can single out Urban Meyer if you want to and say he wasn't the answer for the job. That's fine. But to try to character assassinate the man on sending him out with something as feeble as this, that's a feeble-minded person that came out with those quotes. He's feeble-minded, simple. He's a simpleton. And for that to be the representation that Jacksonville is leaning on, I think that tells you everything you need to know about this organization and why they can't win. Dysfunction has a way of showing its ugly-ass face in so many different ways, and now we've just seen another from a dysfunctional organization.
You know what the irony is? So now Darrell Bevell takes over as their interim head coach. Shad Khan's entrusting the coaching staff that not only narked on their own head coach, or at least I shouldn't say everyone. There's obviously a couple members in particular. But he's entrusting, like they're so upset of the lack of development for Trevor Lawrence. Who do you think was coaching him? Like who do you think the lack of development came from? Was it Urban Meyer? You hired him as more of a CEO type. It was the staff. And so what, you think he was standing in the way of this staff being able to do its job? He wasn't up there drawing an exercise. He doesn't have an offensive playbook. It's Darrell Bevell. It's Brian Schottenheimer. If you're upset about the lack of development of Trevor Lawrence, go look at the guys one of them you just hired as the interim head coach. I mean, that's the reality of this. You're turning and trusting over to a staff of coaches that, if you're frustrated with the result, they were as big of a piece of that as anyone else.
It's the whole thing is just
dysfunction.
It's crazy.